Welcome, welcome, welcome to Health Issues. I'm your host, Sylvain, and probably had one of the most serious shows we've ever had, and one that's just important. Take some time and please listen. We're going to be speaking about a project that's going on. It's called Eden House, but we have two ladies that's going to give us some information about what it is. First, let me introduce them. We have Ms. Carr Carr, and she's the executive director of Eden House. And we also have the resident director, Ms. Clemmie Greenlee. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Good, good. And first, Ms. Carr, please give us a little information. Tell everybody what Eden House is.
Absolutely. Eden House is a newly formed program here in New Orleans.
Okay.
We have a house for 8 women who have survived human trafficking and are leaving lives of prostitution. We provide for 2 years all medical care, psychiatric care, counseling, job training, education, everything that our residents need to really transform their lives so that when they graduate from Eden House, they'll have a stable job, stable long-term housing, and a savings. We have a matched savings plan so that when they go out on their own, they have what they need to support themselves economically, and they'll also have a community of support for the rest of their lives in Eden House.
Okay, define human trafficking.
Human trafficking, there are several definitions. Let's use the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. It's actually, if it's a child, then force, fraud, or coercion doesn't need to be used. It's actually taking a child and selling them or buying them for purposes of sexual exploitation. Human trafficking for an adult requires the use of force, fraud, or coercion in order to be considered human trafficking. But once you learn about the sex trade and the sex industry, because at Eden House we're focused on sex trafficking, I haven't heard a story from a single woman where a pimp didn't use force to keep her working. And the money is taken from the women. And the pimps basically are using people as economic goods. They're selling them over and over again and keeping the money. That, by definition, is slavery.
That was the next point. So it's no different than the slave trade continuing on.
Continuing on. Other than the difference, I guess, is that a lot of the way that the women and girls and boys are controlled is not just, isn't always with handcuffs and chains. Okay. They often use drugs, fear, coercion to control the people that they're selling as goods.
That's even more powerful than chains.
Absolutely. Because you can take off a chain and somebody might run.
Right.
But if you're controlling them and brainwashing them, even when they're free to run, they're still not really free.
Captivated in their own minds in this
and trapped in their own minds.
Degrading type of, it's more degrading than using chains.
It is. And it's more degrading. Sex trafficking is, in many instances, more degrading than labor trafficking.
Than having somebody work cotton fields, to have them work Bourbon Street.
To have their body basically taken away from them time and time again, and they're basically raped 7 to 10 times on average a day. 7
to 10 times a day they're raped, they're being sold, and they just get a pittance of the money.
Right,
and
for survival.
I want to talk here, and then we're going to get back to Ms. Greenlee. Bourbon Street and the French Quarter and all of the strip clubs. New Orleans is a sex capital of the world, probably, as far as for the Bourbon Street, and people come from Iowa and Nebraska and all over and to put on a mask, Mardi Gras, and with the Super Bowl coming up. Each of those clubs, I'm sure the bigger clubs might have, I guess, 30 or 40 girls working, or even more than that. But to supply these clubs with girls, and I'm sure it's a high turnover rate, does anybody have any estimate of how many girls they need per month or per year
Numbers are so hard because this is such a hidden industry, and it is so underground. It is really hard to determine numbers of human trafficking numbers in the sex industry. There are some numbers that the U.S. I like to use U.S. government statistics because I'm a former U.S. diplomat, and so I know how the numbers have happened, and I trust them. The average age of entry into prostitution for an American girl is 12 to 14, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. 12 to 14. That's the average. So think of if one 18-year-old enters into prostitution, how many 10-year-olds have to enter to make that the average? So human trafficking is really a global human rights issue. And I got involved in this working in this area. I'm the former vice consul at the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. And while I was there, I wrote the Trafficking in Persons report for the country of Jamaica. And I negotiated with the government of Jamaica to get them to better strengthen their laws. And the U.S. government actually had a full plan for the country of Jamaica that I helped implement. And if they didn't do it, they were going to lose a significant amount of U.S. government funding, which is a pretty big stick.
Great.
So when I came back to New Orleans, I was shocked to realize that human trafficking is not just a global issue. It doesn't just happen in places like Cambodia and Vietnam. It doesn't just happen in Amsterdam and Thailand. It happens right here in the United States, right here in Louisiana, right here in New Orleans. And not only that, but the United States is the biggest demand country in the world for illegal human trafficking services. Wow. We consume more of that, essentially slave labor, here in the United States than any other country does. Well, I felt like such a hypocrite. I'd been overseas with my big U.S. government stick, telling Jamaica what they were doing wrong and how they had to strengthen their laws. And I get back to the United States and I realize I've been on my big American soapbox and we're not doing anything about our problem here. So I began to work with State Representative Neil Abramson and to better strengthen the laws here in Louisiana. And he and I sat down and drafted a law to protect domestic minor sex trafficking victims, so children who are trafficked into the sex industry here in Louisiana. And we used the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the federal legislation, as our model. And he and I sat down and drafted, we made it even stronger than the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and Neil got it passed with one tiny amendment.
Great.
And we have continued to work to change legislation, not just in the area of the criminal code, but the children's code and other areas that would affect child trafficking victims. And Louisiana actually was recently recognized, a group called Shared Hope International that does international work against human trafficking and domestic work. They did a study of all the laws in the 50 states around the United States, and they graded each state on what they were doing to fight child trafficking and the laws to protect child victims. And Louisiana was voted #1 in the country for our laws, which is really exciting.
Awesome.
'Cause we're making progress. There's still more to be done, but we're making progress.
Right.
But what I realized, I started working on the Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force through the U.S. Attorney's Office, and also the Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force through the State Attorney General's Office. Assistant State Attorney General Catherine Green is the head of the Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force out of Baton Rouge, and she is actually the co-founder of Eden House with me. We founded Eden House together. And what we kind of began to realize through all this work and getting NGOs and government and everyone to work together is that we could have the best laws in the country. We could have the best laws in the world. Mm-hmm. But if there's no place for people to go to recover from the trauma that they suffered as children or are currently suffering, then we haven't really helped a single person.
Good point.
So we founded Eden House as a safe haven for women who are finally in a place where they can escape their pimp, or in a place where their pimp has tossed them out because they're too old, they're not making enough money for them, right, and their drug consumption is so high, they're less valuable to the pimp. And now they're drug addicted, living on the street, they haven't gotten an education because they were probably snatched at 12, 13, 14 years old. Right. And so they're living under a bridge and eating out of trash cans and turning tricks just to support their drug habit.
Right.
And now they need a place to really get back on their feet, to transform their lives, to dream about all those dreams they had when they were 12, and it was snatched away from them.
Awesome, awesome. Miss Greenlee.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
May I introduce her?
Yeah, please.
Would that be okay?
No, you go right ahead.
I love introducing Clemmie.
Go ahead.
So Clemmie is a graduate of the Magdalene House program, the program that we're based upon out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
She has come down to Eden House to be our resident director and really love our new residents and inculcate the culture of Magdalene House into Eden House, which is that every resident is loved and embraced from the moment she walks through the door. And the newest member of our community is the most valued, the most treasured, the most honored and loved, so that she feels comfortable and a part of the community from the second she sees the house. Oh, wow. And so Clemmie has come down to do that for us. But Clemmie, this is why I love to introduce her, because she is one of the most inspirational people I have ever met. She is so full of life, so generous, and has a smile for everyone, and really so much love in her heart. It's absolutely incredible when you hear what she's survived and how she's worked to transform her life, and now she's giving back in a way that is so meaningful to so many people. We are just really blessed to have Clemmie down here from Nashville, and I'm so glad to have you, Clemmie.
Yeah.
Super.
Yes. I'm honored. I really am. I'm just so honored that this, like I said earlier, this conversation has really started hitting home and hitting other cities and other states. I tell people all the time, I remember 10 years old standing in elementary school taking a photo group picture with my classmates, and that's the last part of school that I remember. And at 12 years old, I was introduced to the sex trafficking life. At 13, I had a baby. Didn't know what happened to the baby after I had it, and after the baby was born, I was reintroduced back to the sex trafficking, which took me through prostitution. You know, once I became part of being snatched by pimps, dirty old men, predators, you don't understand at 12 years old why a car just pulled in front of you and snatched you up and put you in this car. I say all the time, to my recollection, I was going to the store to get bread or candy maybe, and just got snatched up. And once they snatched me up, they started talking about something that they had given me before, like a pair of shoes or a dress or just something that comes through the neighborhood, and you accept it because somebody's out giving out candy or whatever. But the debt and the price tag of you accepting that, it costs you and you don't understand it. And so they come back around and got me. You don't really talk about it, because who can I go back and tell that just what just happened to me coming from the store and these men got me? Yeah. Because it just wasn't talked about then. And this is like the early 70s. And so the next thing I know, I was abducted again from them. And this time I was actually taken away from my neighborhood to a house. And the house was a big house with a basement. And in the basement was other girls that was already there, already handcuffed to the bedpost. And immediately I knew something was wrong. And they just tucked me and just threw me on this bed, snatched my clothes off, handcuffed me to both posts, and then just start immediately shooting me up with drugs. At that time, it was liquid cocaine. And then they start putting pills down your mouth. They start pouring liquor down your mouth. So you screaming, the girls are screaming, and then all of a sudden here come the men that come in and just start doing all kind of degrading and sex acts with you. And some women, there was some women involved. So not only are you terrified, you traumatized just now. And the first question that came to me was, what did I do wrong? What happened? Why is this happening to me? And so not only did I, pray and was scared and was angry and wanting to get out of this, I kind of thought about if these girls was already handcuffed to the beds and how long they've been there, had nobody got them, who's going to get me? And more that you try to escape, the more you get beat. The more, I mean, I got an 8-inch stab wound in my back now. I got scars in my head for where I've had so many stitches at. My eyes just, I don't know how the colors has come back like this, but you can still kind of see the stitches that where they have been stitched up so many times. And I tell people that, you know, the first question they ask is, why didn't you run? Why didn't you get away? Once you done went through that at 12 years old, and then you see other girls, and then they use you to say, if you ever say anything, if you ever do this, this is what's going to happen to you, or this is what's going to happen to your family, this is what's going to happen to your parents. And so you're devastated. So when you do get a chance to, like, go to a store or a restaurant or anywhere with them, you are scared to death to make eye contact and let somebody know that this is not my daddy, this is not my uncle, he's got me against my will. And no one is there to even help teach you how to get out of that. The other thing I said about what I went through is all the rapings that we go through at 12, 14, even 16, from all of these men with different sizes, where we have to end up going over and over and over to the hospital, the emergency room, getting sewed up, getting stitched up. So why didn't that captivate somebody's attention, that we're running through that like that? I went in there and had a baby at 13. It was more girls came behind me, 12 and 13, having babies. Why didn't that catch anybody's attention? And then you get to the part where you eventually start advertising yourself now, because they don't put you out there. You don't have no choice. I'm going to die like this. So one day I'm going to proposition a police officer. I didn't know he was a police officer. I propositioned him. Now I'm in handcuffs. So now you like, thank God I'm saved. But are you really saved? No. So once you get in the handcuffs, you get to juvenile, and you know that your parents or somebody's coming to get you, and they don't, and you got the same pimp that put you in there in the first place, because you wouldn't have been in this hotel talking about some money to even get arrested. So the system, again, was not there. And this is my point with a lot of people that in the community that want to touch base with this now, is to, instead of pointing fingers at us and saying they wanted, it was easy money, they enjoyed it. No, we did not. At 12 years old, I wanted to be an RN. I did not want to be a prostitute. I did not want to be arrested over 100 times. I did not want my record to be messed up where I can't even get a decent job. I did not want to have the scars and the wounds that I have of never having a kid again, or ashamed to wear a short blouse because of the drug marks on my arm, the stab wound on my back, or shaving all my hair off, scared somebody gonna see the scars. We do not ask for all of that. And as I went on with my lifestyle of being a prostitute, I really, really wanted out. I really wanted help. Everybody in there wanted help. Everybody wanted out of there. And so the baby that I had ended up, I'm not being a part of my life. So I was, like she said, I was aged out of there, probably about 30, 32, because they threw with me. You know, they done everything they can do with me. My body done start getting out of shape. I'm not performing like I used to. My drug habit done escalated a little higher than they thought, and I needed more and more to even not feel again. So it was gonna move me out of the way and bring in someone else. And that's eventually when I started just hitting the streets, homeless, under the bridge, eating out of trash cans, supplying my habit, not knowing what to do. Not only did I know how to go look for some help, there's been no help for me in over 20 years. So the last I remember of education was 10 years old. So I went in and out of prison when I turned 18. So I kept getting arrested for prostitution, assault and battery, stealing, public drunk, anything that, and still didn't get the question asked, why am I running in and out like that? And it was finally, I was 42 years old when I finally got some help. And it was a program that she's talking about called the Magdalene House that came through, and just was the lady, Reverend Becca Stevens, she kept coming and doing ministry at the prison. And all of a sudden she realized, every time I come and do this ministry, these same girls are here, or they are back 6 weeks later what's going on? What was going on is there was no opportunity, no housing, or no sort of resource for us for sex trafficking and prostitution and human trafficking, because no one really wanted to touch that subject. It's a degrading subject to them, but it's no degrading than what we have to go through with our bodies, and we had no choice and no control in it. And that's why I like speaking on it today, because I like people to know that it is not what you think it is when you see the girls on Bourbon Street, when you see the girls in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm from, on Dickinson Road and Murfreesboro Road. You have no idea what has went on while these girls is here. And majority of them was there from 8 years old to 12 years old to 14 years old. Now we 21, we 19, we 32. So we are trapped right there. Like, this is supposed to be our lifestyle, until people like you start bringing exposure to it like you're doing now.
Help us understand more of these girls. And I know I'm hearing your story, but these girls that are out there in the clubs now, and help us understand what's going on with these girls.
They're out in the club now because they have someone behind them that's got them out here. They're not out here because they want. They either done accepted something, or whether it was some clothes, some money, a ring, paid my rent up for me, bought me some groceries. They have accepted something. And by them accepting this, then we are in debt with these people. And I tell people all the time that in the 70s, yeah, you look at the word pimp with the black guy with the Superfly hat and the coat on. Today, there's madams, there are doctors, there are lawyers. There's a bunch of pimps under that, a bunch of people under that word pimps. So I always ask people that when you see them out there like that, can you be bold enough to just come up and ask them, why are you here? Do you really want to be here? And when you talk to them, and if you see us looking around, cutting our eyes and stuff like that, that means that they're somewhere watching us, that they got somebody looking at us to make sure we don't say the wrong thing. But I used to tell her, even when I went to Bourbon Street, I never knew anything about Bourbon Street. I just heard about it from Nashville. But when I actually made it to Bourbon Street, the first thing I wanted to find out was those girls that danced, the strippers, right. And I wanted to see some of the prostitutes. Right. And I just straight up asked them, take me to the host row. Right. Because I want to show them, once I say something to them girls, what reaction we're going to get. Right. So if they was really so there and want to be there, once we passed out those cards, right, we would have never got as many phone calls as we did, and I'm going to leave it at that.
You said that none of those girls want to be there. They all wish they had another life.
Yeah, I tell them all the time, if you put 100 girls in front of us and ask all 100 girls, do they want to be there, you're going to get 1 or 2 that might say yes. The other 98 is going to say, please help me, but I can't go back to there. If you let me out right now, who's going to protect me from this? Right. See, this is the key to it. The reason they're going to say yes, they don't want to get beat, they don't want to get killed, and they don't want their family hurt. And people think we can just say, oh no, I like it. I've been doing it for 5 years, I get food, we're not bragging about it. We are scared to death. If we sit up here and say no, and then I leave this TV station, when I get back, I'm getting beat. I'm finna see this girl get beat. I'm even finna see somebody even get their leg cut off or something. This is a dangerous game, and nobody looks at the other part of it. So when these girls say, yes, I like it, he buys me fur coats, I get diamonds, and we better not say nothing different. But catch them somewhere else. Catch them in a restaurant by themselves or in a bathroom by themselves and ask them that same question.
Help me out.
Wow, we've covered a lot, huh?
Yeah.
We're gonna, I
so
think.
Just talk about how you just want people to just be aware of the big moment you guys are getting ready to have in New Orleans right now.
The Super Bowl. Thanks, Clemmie. And I think what I want to just elaborate a little on one of Clemmie's points, which is, when you do see somebody who's in prostitution, or you do see, a young person on the street, maybe even a child, instead of judging them at that moment when you see them, think about their story. I mean, everybody who's out there has a story, and think about what that story looks like before you decide to judge that moment. I think a lot of people in their head have a pretty woman idea. That it's a college girl who wants a little bit of extra money to, pay for school or fancy shoes. And if that was the case, and it was an 18-year-old making an informed, consensual decision, and she wanted a little extra money, it wouldn't be what I would choose, but she'd be free to make that choice in my mind.
Okay.
But because I'm a feminist, and so if somebody wanted to make that decision, I would be fine with that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people working because it's the only thing they can do to survive, or because somebody will beat them and torture them if they don't, because they've been part of the grooming process is exactly what Clemmie talked about. Pimps often drug and gang rape the girls, and once you drug and gang rape someone several times, there isn't anything you can't do to them.
Well, let's deal with this. And okay, if so, not if so, and I know it to be a fact, you know, because the first time I heard it, I was blown away. The 100% rule, and I've heard you say it without me even asking, that no girls choose this profession. It just doesn't happen. That whole, like you said, that pretty woman thing, it doesn't even exist. It's a game. It's something that somebody created in their own mind. None of these girls want to be on Bourbon Street. None of that.
I think it's important not to talk. I mean, this is the lawyer in me coming out. I don't like to talk in absolutes.
We don't have to do absolutes.
All or anything. It's not. I wouldn't say 100, but I would say a strong majority. Yeah. And maybe there are, you know, a couple people on, you know, sugardaddy.com or whatever who, you know, it is
that have been abused by somebody when they were a kid. So
right, probably,
it complicates it. It complicates
it. But anyway,
but probably we don't even have to make that point.
Yes, but most people are, most women
but
are.
But that's the point. We're almost time. But we don't have to make that point to say that if we went down in which the authorities, the city health department, Dr. Karen DeSalvo, and the city of New Orleans needs to go down and interview every one of these girls. Let's talk about their lives. We need social workers, the entire Bourbon, the entire where we see the obvious sex industry, and let alone go down by the motels down
Chef
Tulane
Mentor,
and Chef Mentor Highway, right. New Orleans, again, Super Bowl that's going on, and we're getting tax dollars, and supposedly because it's funding the economy, same thing, Jamaica, am I right? That we just dealt with? Hey, let's shut it down. This is not right, and it needs to end. It's just no way these are girls. I got 5 daughters. All right? This can't happen. Girls let's look at the girls. Again, the pretty women, had they been raped, did somebody abuse them in the first place when they were 9 years old, when they were 5 years old? And in fact, the woman that decides to do it, hey, regardless, let's make sure that they examine and the social worker talks to them first to make sure that there's nothing happened in their life. I think it has to end.
Yeah. I mean, the young lady who said I was 12 years old, and he kept telling me how pretty I was, and I could be your boyfriend and all that, and kind of gassed her up. And then when she accepted all the good things he was telling her, and he said, well, come, I want you to meet my family. Well, his family was those guys, and she was saying the next thing she know, she was in this bed have to have sex with all these guys because they come at us and tell us at once, but I thought you said you loved me after I, you know.
Sylvain with health issues.
Oh, I didn't know you were still on.
You keep on going.
Yeah.
It's the end.
No, that's fine. I was just telling you about it.
Hey, shut it down. Do what we have to do.
One last thing. Our website, www.edenhousenola.org.
Done.
Yeah.
Thank you.